for you.
What we are doing, and many people around the world are doing, is we're participating in 21 days of prayer where we can devote ourselves more to God, and we can seek to be closer to Him, and we can seek to pray about situations in our life where we need to see or long to see Him break into our life and to show up. So let's look at Daniel chapter 10, where we see the 21 days. I'm going to start reading at verse 12, but if you back up to, this is not on the screen, but if you back up to verse 2, it says, when I, Daniel, have been mourning for 3 weeks. So we see that he's kind of like, he's upset. You know, he's mourning, he's grieving, he's disillusioned, he's desperate. These are all like inner dispositions that many of us go through at times in our life. And when we do, we see in the Bible many times people praying and fasting. We often also see it when people are trying to make decisions about things. I know it may sound like, well, what is the deal about this? I mean, one thing is that it doesn't mean that there's the things in our life that we may give up. It doesn't mean that they're bad. They could be. But we give them up out of love for God. We don't do it out of religion, out of duty, out of obligation. We do it out of love. And as we think about doing it out of love, we do it to enter into a deeper love relationship with Jesus. That often when we're feeling that thing that we're giving up and we're missing it, we tell Him, I want you more. And here's the deal. Sometimes we don't get our breakthrough till the end. We might get it 1 day in. We might get it 3 days in. Daniel did not get his breakthrough until 21 days in. So it says here that he had been mourning for 3 whole weeks. And all that time I had eaten no rich foods, no meat or wine crossed my lips. And I used no fragrant lotions until the 3 weeks had passed. And then in verse 12 it says this, that Daniel had a vision from an angel. And it doesn't mean that we're always going to get something that dramatic. It does mean that God is going to show up. Because the Bible says anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. The Bible says that God is not willing that anyone be lost, but everyone come to know Him. His heart is for everyone. So it says, since the first day that you began praying, Daniel, for understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your request has been heard in heaven, and I've come to answer your prayer. But for 21 days, the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way. And then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me. So there's like this battle going on in the spirit realm. Then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me, and I left him there with the spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia. And now I'm here to explain what will happen to your people in the future, for this vision concerns a time yet to come. So 21 days, and then Daniel got his breakthrough. So I want you to think about what is the situation in your life. It could be a struggle. Man, these notes are not wanting to stay up here. It could be a situation. It could be a struggle, inner struggle. For Daniel, it was a situation. In chapter 1, we see that he He was carried away captive, that the king of Babylon besieged the city of Jerusalem, declared war, went into the temple, robbed the temple of many of the sacred things dedicated to God, took those back, and dedicated his lowercase g gods. And taken captive along with his family was Daniel. I want you to think about how hard that situation was. And how easy it could have been. So the king ordered some of the young men who were taken captive to be brought to him to serve in his palace. He's like, oh, wow, man, that's amazing. You get to serve in the king's palace. No, he was taken away from his home. We don't know where his family was. I mean, how many times you have things happen in your life and you say, this is not fair. This is not right. And it's so easy to do one of two things, play the victim or to compromise. And it could have been so easy for Daniel to play the victim. It could have been so easy for him to compromise and to get caught up into all that was going on in the king's court. But Daniel chose, in that difficult situation, to let that desperation and that difficulty that he was in drive him to God, because he knew that God was for him. He knew that God loved him. He knew that God wasn't the one causing this. He knew that we live in an imperfect world with imperfect people. But we have a perfect God who works all things together for good as we continue to love him and open up our hearts to him. So no matter what it is in your life, the Lord longs to show up. And here's the deal. Many times, think about this, the Lord wants to show up through people. Jesus, who was God incarnate, God in the flesh, God showed up in the person of Jesus Christ. The Word became flesh, it says in the Gospel of John, and dwelt among us. So, a lot of times we're praying, oh, Lord, show up for this person. Work in this person's life, and God is saying, hey, I want to use you. You're going to be Jesus with flesh on, with skin on. The other day I was getting on Interstate 64, and there was a wreck, and so people were getting off the exit, and I was getting off, and here's the deal. That morning, I had not gotten up as early as I wanted to. I was mad at myself because I was like, why didn't I wake up earlier? And one of the things that I'm working on is my rest during this 21 days. I'm fasting TV at night an hour before I go to bed at night. I'll come back to that in a moment. With the intention, I want to get up plenty early so I can spend time with God. And I had not gotten up early, and I was mad at myself. You ever get mad at yourself? And so I'm hopping on. And here's another thing. I was here at the church, and I had a meeting like 4 hours later. And so I was thinking, I'm just going to stay here at the church. And then I had the thought, well, I'm going to run. I need to run an errand out 64, so I think I'm going to head out real quick, and I'll come back. If I hadn't gone, this incident wouldn't have happened. So I get on 64. I got rerouted going down Brownsboro Road, and I went by as I was going down Brownsboro Road, I drove past Virtue Bar and Lounge. And on Monday nights, there's a Discovery Bible study that meets there. There's about 15 people that work there, and they all show up and do Discovery Bible study. And it's led by one of the partners there at the bar. By the way, keep praying for Tony, the guy that I started that Bible study with. Some of you who are newer don't know this, but he had a stroke. He's only 38 years old, but he did get to go home Friday. So he's on his way back to recovery, and so I'm believing that's believed together for his full and complete recovery. But his other partner is leading the Bible study, and I'm mentoring him. It's just really neat to see all these people gathering. But there was one girl, her first name is Mahogany, who had to work a second job and was not able to continue to come to the Bible studies. She texted me before Christmas and asked about getting together and maybe doing the Bible study. And I said, well, that sounds fantastic. We could get together and maybe we could start another group. I'm sure there's other people who may not come on Monday, who can't come on Monday nights. But I haven't heard from her, and I've messaged her a couple of times. So anyway, as I was driving by, I just went by it, right? And I felt the Lord spoke to my heart, laid on my heart, why don't you turn around and go back? So I turned around, I went back, and I walk in, there's Mahogany. We ended up having a great conversation, and we're going to get together Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and I think she's going to bring a couple of friends. Isn't that cool? And here's the deal. What God reminded me was this. It's not about my performance. It's about his performance. It's about his grace. It doesn't mean that he doesn't want me to get up early. It doesn't mean he doesn't want me to make certain choices. But we put so much pressure on ourselves thinking that, if it's to be, it's up to me. And I'm the one that makes all the difference, right? He's the one that makes all the difference. But the point is that often God wants to show up through you in someone's life. But no matter what the situation is, the Lord wants to show up. He longs to show up for his people. He longs to show up. Say this, the Lord longs to show up for me. Just feel that for a minute. Let that go up your right brain into your left brain. The Lord longs, say it again, the Lord longs to show up for me. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 15. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 15. And we're going to read through verse 22. This is a beautiful passage, and Jesus often quoted from the book of Isaiah. He quoted from the book of Deuteronomy, so these are two fantastic books. It says this is what the sovereign Lord, the Holy One of Israel says, only in returning to me and resting in me will you be saved. In quietness, notice that, in quietness, be still and know that I'm God. In quietness and confidence is your strength, but you would have none of it. You said, no, we will get our help from Egypt. They will give us swift horses for riding into battle. But the only swiftness you're going to see is the swiftness of your enemies chasing you. One of them will chase you one of you will chase 1,000 of you. One of them will chase 1,000 of you. 5 of them will make all of you flee. You will be left like a lonely flagpole on a hill or a tattered banner on a distant mountaintop. So the Lord must wait for you to come to him. The Lord must wait for you. That's a beautiful picture, isn't it? That even though that we've gone our own way, even though we've closed God out, he waits for us. So he can show you his love and his compassion. Because it is his love and his compassion that is going to change your character. It is not following a bunch of rules and regulations and obligations. It is getting in touch with his love and his compassion, his heart for you. For the Lord is a faithful God. Blessed are all those who wait for his help. So it's interesting, God waits for us, right? And then God calls us to seek him and to wait sometimes. Daniel waited 21 days. Jesus waited 40 days as he fasted and prayed in the wilderness. It was only at the end of the fast, after he had resisted the devil's 3 temptations of appetite, approval, and ambition, that it says that Jesus returned with power and that the angels came and attended to him. God waits for us, and sometimes he calls us to wait for him. But we wait in love and we wait in expectation. It doesn't mean that when we're waiting for God to intervene in some way that we cannot experience his love immediately if we open up our hearts. And sometimes the gift of his love is greater than the gift of what we were praying for God to intervene in. Wouldn't it be so cool that you get such an experience of his love invading your life that you forget all about what you were praying about? Wouldn't that be amazing? Blessed are those who wait for his help. O people of Zion, who live in Jerusalem, you will weep no more. He will be gracious if you ask for help. He will surely respond to the sound of your cries. Though the Lord gave you adversity for food and suffering for drink, he will still be with you to teach you. You will see your teacher with your own eyes. Your own ears will hear him. Right behind you, a voice will say, this is the way you should go, whether to the left or to the right. And then you will destroy all your silver idols, your precious gold images. You will throw them out like filthy rags, saying to them, good riddance. Everybody say good riddance. Anything you need to say good riddance in your life? And then notice it says this, and then the Lord will bless you, and there will be a wonderful harvest. You know, this time of fasting and praying is teaching me that sometimes there's enemies of God that are disguised as the friend of God. Sometimes there's subtle things that need sifting. And sometimes those enemies don't arise to the surface until we have prayed and fasted. Because when you've given up things you're so dependent upon and you're praying for God you're depending on him a little bit more, sometimes your spiritual vision opens up and you see things differently. And you begin to see some of the subtle things, because it's not so much the obvious things that we have trouble with. It's more so the subtle things. It's teaching me that there are things that can be enemies of God, but they were disguised as a friend of God. Let me explain. So, I've talked to you about this before. So Sunday through Thursday is kind of like my busy days, and I often don't get in until like 8 p.m. at night. And I'm usually not eating my dinner until 8:30. And I love to eat, by the way. Can I get an amen? So I'm sitting down, I'm eating my dinner. I love to take my time too, and I always do round two. I do round one and then round two, and then I've got the TV on. And here's the thing: I don't consider myself addicted to TV. Like I never watch TV during the day, and I don't really watch a whole lot of it. But by the time I'm finishing up my dinner, like by 10 o'clock, and sometimes I'm still kind of wrapping up at 10:15. I'm trying to go to bed. I've committed myself to go to bed by 10:30 p.m. so I can get up early. And I can have plenty of time to spend meditating, praying, worshiping, and reading. This gets me ready for the day, right? And I'm learning to value the Lord's presence, and his presence is tangible. Sometimes I feel it more than other days. But I don't live by emotion. I live by faith. And as I consistently show up, he shows up. But here's what happens. So I've got the TV on, and I'm just kind of relaxing and chilling, right? I've had a busy day. I'm rejoicing about the day. Sometimes it's been more productive than others. And what starts off is like a friend of God, you might say. It's kind of like an innocent thing. Becomes a problem. Because I cannot turn the TV off. Anybody else in the room like this? And I'm finishing up eating, and I've got to clean my dishes because I'm a hand washer. Any hand washer dishes? Y'all like to hand wash the dishes? Come on, that's right. My son's like, why don't you just put them in the dishwasher? No, I like to rinse them off, wash them with Dr. Bonner's peppermint soap. All that stuff is so good. And you came to hear the sermon today just so you can hear about Dr. Bonner's peppermint soap. Yeah, anyway. So, and there's other things to do. You know what I mean? There's always something to do. And then I go back in, I get all that done. It's like it's way past 10:30, and the TV's still on. And it kind of I sit down, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it could be as close to midnight. And I'm like, I cannot believe I'm sitting down here. I mean, it's just like stupid stuff, right? CNN, Sports Center, whatever. Fab Five, movie from the past. This has been a problem in my life, people. And what started off as maybe like an innocent, friend became an enemy to what God was trying to do because I couldn't turn the thing off. So I've made the commitment to turn the TV off at 9:30 so that I can have plenty of time to get myself together and I can have some extra time to relax and to pray and to lie down in my bed because I always had to I had eye surgery 3 years ago, and I have to put eye drops in my eyes every morning, like 10 or 15 minutes apart. It takes like 30 minutes, and I have to do that at night. And so it's like I'm relaxing. See, here's the thing about it. My intention was to relax. Does God not want us to relax? In fact, I have discovered that the more relaxed I am, the more God can work in my life. It's like the more uptight I am, the less he can get in. The more relaxed, the more he can work. And yet God is wanting to give me a different kind of relaxation as I lie down in my bed, go to bed a little bit earlier. It's like the Lord lets me rest in green meadows. And he leads me beside peaceful streams. See, the Apostle Paul said this. He said, all things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. All things are permissible, but not all things build people up. We have to ask ourselves, it may have started off and maybe it was building you up in some way, but then all of a sudden it's tearing you down. We have to set boundaries around eating, drinking, thinking, attitudes, social media, TV, work. Jesus was tempted with the 3 A's I mentioned earlier. He was tempted with appetite. He was tempted with approval. And he was tempted with ambition. It says about Jesus, the devil exhausted every possible temptation, but Jesus didn't give in. And so the devil left until the next opportunity. If the devil tempted Jesus for the next opportunity, let me tell you something, he will tempt you for the next opportunity. And what is that next opportunity? It's called halt. It's when you are hungry and angry and lonely and tired, the devil knows just when to show up. And he will offer you something that seems like it's innocent. He will offer you something that seems like a friend. But it's really an enemy to what God is trying to do in your life. And sometimes, it's the good things that are the enemy of the greater things. There's a really cool book by James Collins called Good to Great. And it's on the great companies. And what they discovered is like the reason they're great is because they learn to move from the good to the great. They learn to realize that sometimes the good, we're doing a lot of good things. But sometimes those good things were enemies to the greater things. Lamar Jackson won his playoff game last night with a quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. If some of you don't know who he is. But before the game, you know what he said? He said this in an interview. He said, they were asking about what he needs to do, and he says this. He said, we just need to keep our eye on the prize. And don't focus on all the outside distractions. Isn't that true of us? See, Jesus is the prize. the purpose that he has for our life, the plan, the path he wants us to follow. He will show it to us, and we will seek him. Everyone who asks receives. Everyone who seeks will find. Everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. We have to keep our eye on the prize, and he is that prize. And not get caught up in the outside distractions. One of the biggest areas that we've got to guard against is our attitude, our inner life. That we don't become bitter, resentful, play the victim, or compromise, all of which Daniel could have done in the situation that he was in. Because, it's not like the devil is going to show up and he's going to say, hey, I'm the devil, this is an enemy of God, it's going to tear you down and it's going to lead you away from God. Here you go, right? No, it says this, that the devil, if he shows up in the next opportunity, by the power of suggestion, he's going to disguise himself as an angel of light. The Apostle Paul wrote this. He said, even Satan himself disguises himself as an angel of light. And one of the things I've realized is that if God's trying to know the direction of God, to know the wisdom of God, it is always accompanied with peace. It says this in the book of James, James chapter 3, verse 17. It says, the wisdom that comes from God is full of peace. In the Bible, you are called the friend of God. I am called the friend of God. Jesus himself said, I don't call you servants. No longer I call you friends. And as we turn to God in our halt, when we are too hungry, too angry, too lonely, too tired, nothing wrong with eating. Nothing wrong with watching a little TV. Nothing wrong with checking in on social media. But there's a point at which nothing wrong with going to work and being ambitious. Nothing wrong with wanting people to feel like at work that you've done a good job. But there's a point at which you can get so caught up in your appetite, your approval, and your ambition that it becomes an enemy working against you instead of working for you. All things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. All things are permissible, but not all things build people up. And as we turn to God, though, however, in our desperation, we are so desperate for God to show up, we're willing to fast something. God shows up with his love and transforms everything. As we turn to God, we are being transformed by the love of God and by the love of other people, because he also wants his love to show up through you and me together. Because together we are being transformed. Together in family we are being transformed. They say that a little child, when a baby is born, what they need the most to develop a healthy brain is a loving mom or dad looking them in their face and smiling and letting them know that I'm so glad that you're here. And this is what you and me need. We need to sense that the loving face of God shining down upon us. And we need to have that in our lives as well. As we turn to God, we are being transformed by the love of God and by the love of other people. It's called friendship. Friendship with God. Everybody say this. Friendship with God. Friendship with others. Isn't it interesting that John, the beloved disciple, said in 1 John that loving God includes loving people? We have to love both. Isn't it interesting that Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself? He said, love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as you love yourself. Christianity, a relationship with Jesus, includes a relationship with one another. Love one another, encourage one another, admonish one another, lift one another up, comfort one another. And as we experience that kind of love from God and from one another, we are being transformed. Our adversity, our anger, our lust, our difficult situation, our past is being transformed by the love of God. And God takes our adversity. God takes whatever it is. You know, it's like that sock, one side fits any foot. You fill in the blank. It fits every one of us. Whatever it is for you, God takes that difficult situation, whether it's on the outside or whether it's on the inside, and he transforms it into something beautiful. I quoted Thomas Merton, the monk from Abbey of Gethsemane, who died at the age of 58 through an accidental electrocution, stepping out of the shower. And he was in Louisville for an appointment, and he was on the corner of 4th and Walnut. And it was a warm, sunny day, and there were people walking all around. And he says this, he said that in Louisville, the corner of 4th and Walnut, in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all those people. That they were mine and I was theirs, and that we could not be alien to one another even though we were total strangers. And I want you to see this picture of him. Look at the love on that man's face. Look at the love of God that he felt, not only toward himself, but he felt that day that went out toward all these people. But I want to tell you a little bit about his life because it wasn't always like that. At the age of 6, he lost his mother to cancer. At the age of 16, he lost his father to a brain tumor. At the age of 18, he enrolled in Cambridge University in London. And here's what he says, quote, "The environment was neither dark nor sinister, but I got caught up in all the parties and the drinking." Isn't it interesting? Notice that. The environment was neither dark nor sinister. Sounds like an angel of light, doesn't it? But I got caught up in something. Have you got caught up in something? It started off, it wasn't dark or sinister, but it's become dark and sinister. If you don't think the devil showed, why don't you think, if you're sitting there thinking the devil's not, I don't even believe in the devil. He's not going to show up and mess with me. It says that he was going to wait. He showed up in Jesus' life, and then it says he's going to wait till the next opportunity. And he's not going to pull you in by something dark and sinister. He's going to make it look like you deserve this because that wasn't right what happened. The environment was neither dark nor sinister, but I got caught up. He would end up fathering a child outside of marriage, a child that he would never meet. I want you to think about how.
Did I praise